Do you really need them to give you the approval to do it? Why don't you just go in and do it yourself? Yeah, I think I will. Hey, this is MichelleSpiva, your practical priestess of wisdom, and I want to welcome you to today's podcast of Wisdom Smack. Mwah. So join me on the flip as we get into talking about making your own lane. I'll see you on the flip. So today's podcast, I want to give it a dedication. I want to give a shout out to that person or persons who've ever been told no, been denied, rejected, had obstacles thrown in your way, been beat down, unsupported, left for obscurity. All of those things. If you've ever had something in your life that has happened to you, this podcast is dedicated to you. And so, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for joining me today. And I want to just really kind of like encourage you that in whatever you're endeavoring to do, there are going to be times when you get knocked down. There are going to be times when it seems like nothing is ever going to happen. And I love the little saying from Finding Nemo where Dory says, keep swimming. So I'm going to say that first, keep swimming. All right. So the next thing I'm going to say is that when you get these no's, rejections, and those types of things, is that I want you to understand that no simply means next. No is not a period. No is not even an exclamation point. No is a question mark. And that question is to you. Are you going to take this no, or are you going to keep going and find your next avenue to do it? So I always say that the no's that we get in life are even more important than the yeses because sometimes the no's can save our life and sometimes the no's can make us have better. And so because we are now working on that level of understanding, I am going to tell you that when you are wanting to have something in our life and you keep getting knocked down, denied, or rejected, it's time for you to make your own lane. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And I, I don't know why. It seems like this is so simple, but this concept can be very novel when you're in the thick of things and you've been trying to go the route that is what most people go through. But I just want to quickly just tell you that do you really do you really have to go through the route that everybody says you have to? Seriously. If it weren't for a lot of people before us who made their own lane, there would be so many breakthroughs and ways of doing things that we would never know or have. And so, yes, there is going to come a time if you're going to continue to pursue a life worth having, a life worth getting out of the bed for, a life worth being excited about. You're possibly going to have to make your own lane. So, with all the making your own lane, you will require some skills. And so, you know how we do it around here. If you've listened to any of the podcasts, we talk a little bit about some things, and then we give you some wisdom smacks, and hopefully, we adhere to the fact that yes, this is about practicality and wisdom. And so, we'll probably hopefully, give you some good practical things to get you started. So let's talk about this breakdown of skills that you're going to possibly need. I want to say possibly because I'm trying to be nice, but you're just going to need them. Okay, and so the first thing is you're going to actually need to up your game of observation and deduction. Yeah, you're gonna have to have Sherlock Holmes through here. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times when you're making your own lane, what you're actually doing is you're making new opportunities. And you can only make new opportunities if you have a fresh insight, if you have a fresh look. And that fresh look is not just to see things differently. Oh no. That fresh look is to see things differently, but to also see, you know how I like it around here. See the clues, the signs, and the messages because they're everywhere. And I'll tell you, when you start looking for them, they will gladly show themselves to you because so many people ignore all of the information that is around us in our environment, our world, and in the actions. It is the nonverbal communication from the people as well as the atmospheric communication that we tend to uh, ignore. So be mindful of upping your ability to observe and to take in and then to deduce. And so when I talk about observation, of course, it is what it sounds like. It is looking, but it is a sensual thing because you're going to engage all of your physical senses as well as hopefully your common sense. And just certain little things. If it seems too good to be true, probably is. Occam's razor. If you have a way to get something or not to get something, if you are being presented with some kind of conundrum, usually the simplest answer is the correct answer. So those are just some of the things that you can like bank on when you're trying to up your skills so that you can have fresh eyes, so that you can see new opportunities, so that you can make your own lane. And then the deduction. Now, the deduction, that is going to take a little bit of a different skill set because not only are you going to be able to open your eyes and your senses to see new things, then you need to have some type of either critical thinking or analytical processing so that you can take all of the inputs that you get and put them into some kind of practical narrative. What story is this situation telling you? And what are you able to glean from it? And what I mean by that is when you start to observe and then deduce, you're making conclusions, you're making hypotheses, and you're making bets. Yeah, you're making bets on what's possible, what's available, and what you can possibly try. And so, yeah, that is a big one. And I wish I could tell you that I had a specific time where I knew that this was a skill set, but I don't think so. I think it was just kind of like school of hard knocks for me and for observing others who have gone through this as well. And because of that, um, it's easy to take it for granted. And so if you've already had this opportunity to quote unquote make your own lane, and if you flubbed it or if you weren't as successful, then I want you to consider upping your ability to observe and to deduce. Now, another thing with this skill of observation and deducing, you're not going to hit it out the park the first time, and it's going to take longer than you think because you're new at it. And so don't just think that because you saw something or all the signs are lining up and the stars in the sky, you should go for it. No. Observation and deduction takes time, and it takes us being able to be self-controlled, self-disciplined, and self-reliant to make sure that we are pacing ourselves when we're gathering our information to be able to do this. Because I'm going to tell you, once you start out on making your own lane, you're going to be out there by yourself pretty much. And it's hard if you have only surface knowledge or flash knowledge that is shallow and unstable. It's a bad feeling. Trust me. Trust me, it's a bad feeling. Yes, it is. All right, but then there are other components of this that will help you out because you might be saying, "Okay, Michelle, yeah, you said observation and deduction. I'm no Sherlock Holmes." So what I want to do is I want to just even remind you, even of that fictitious character, there were certain things that he used to help him with his observations and his deductions. And those were he always kind of looked for signs, he looked for clues, and messages. And when I say messages, messages are everywhere. You can find messages in the things people say off the cuff. You can find them in signs, symbols, metaphors, and even code. They are everywhere. And when you look for them, trust me, they will begin to show themselves because so many times people uh do not look or appreciate what's going on all around them. Remember, nonverbal communication is about 94% of all communication. And so, even if no one's saying anything, the atmosphere, and when I say sensual, not just the five senses, but hopefully your common sense, your mother wit, your gut feeling, your inspiration, intuition, whatever you have at your disposal, make use of it. Don't deny it, and don't just say, "Oh, because it's not, practical and tangible." No, go with all of it, because all of it will help you to be able to make a better decision on what pathway you need to go in. I trust you to trust yourself, because that's going to be the best way to go about making your own lane. Okay, so we have that. So I want to talk just a little bit, if you'll permit me. Well, you're listening, so thank you. I want to talk a little bit about context, metaphors, symbols, and codes. And I want to talk about them in this way. I am not saying that you have to go and take a whole code writing class or anything like that. I just want to make sure that you understand, when you are learning your new skill, to be able to have a good chance of making your own lane that will stick, that will have some groundedness to it, and that won't have you out there bad, out on a limb with no place to go. Please, 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 please make sure that any direction you take, from any kind of messages or clues or signs, make sure that you always check the context of how they're given. There have been many times when I stepped out on a limb, and I landed on ground, and I'm very thankful for it. But in hindsight, I had to realize that, even consciously, unconsciously, or the other way around, unconsciously, consciously, I was always looking at things in context. And what I mean by that is, if you just take the traditional who, what, when, why, where, and how, that is going to help you so much. So let me give you a for instance. What if you're trying to advance your career in a certain way, and every time you try to go the way that people say you should go, you get knocked down, you get denied, you can't get your foot in the door, and you're going to try to do this observation and deduction, right? Well, you start looking around and you start noticing that people are starting to have a demand and a taste for a certain type of service, product, or entertainment. And it's something that you can fulfill, right? And so you say, I'm going to make my own lane. I'm going to do this. So you start continuing to observe. You maybe do some research. You get out there, and maybe even you're able to do some surveys and those types of things. Well, once you've done that, you've done a great job. So now it's time to really strengthen and hone in on sharpening and polishing your observation and your deduction skills by doing this, being contextual. So, on the information that you are receiving and that you're processing and that you're basing what you're going to do on, use context this way. Learn first and foremost who is behind it. And I'm going to say that over right now. Who is behind it? There have been many times that I have been duped, just for the most part, on the front end. I got excited about something, and then when I slowed down and I was like, okay, I see all of these signs, all of these clues and messages that I should go this route. When I slow down and I contextualize it by figuring out who's behind this message, who benefits from this message or these messages or these signs, who has the power, who is driving this message, this marketing, this narrative. When I stop to do that, to put it in some type of context, a whole new story starts to come out. Then asking yourself, what would I be able to gain if I use this information? Or what does someone else gain if they are the purveyors of this information or the creators of it? Who wins? Is there opportunity for me or is it all set up for them? And then the when. This one is a big one. And it's one that I have had to wrestle with myself because I tend to like to just go, 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 get it done, get it done. But when you look at things in context, when, meaning when was this message put out? Is this message a trend or a classic? I put a podcast out about that. Go check it out. How to know if this is going to last, if it's going to be perennial, all the time, annually, or if it's just something that's going to um, be upcoming. When also has to do with peaking. Has this information peaked yet? Or are you on the front end of it, or are you on the tail end of it? And then why? Why is this information in your purview? Has it won the right to be up there in the consideration? And then where? Where did it come from? Where is it going? Or where can you fit in? And then the last one is how. How do you make this information work for you? The how deals with customizing it so that you can see the honeypot and the loophole of being able to get in. And that's what I really kind of wanted to um, make sure I put forth to you today with regards to your context. Run yourself through that when you're trying to make your lane and from the information. Because if you do this the right way, then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start to be able to see, evaluate, and even hopefully take advantage of loopholes. Yes, loopholes. They are all around. And the thing is I'm going to say this, and it might sound controversial, but I'm going to just go on and say it, that a lot of times people who make their own lanes, it is because they were not willing to do all the stuff that everybody else is willing to do. Some people call them spoiled. Some people even say they're lazy. Some people even say they're diabolical geniuses, however you want to say it. I will say that a lot of times people who are really good at the skill of loopholes are finding them or, profiting from them, exploiting them, are people that might come off as not wanting to wait in line, impatient, lazy, whatever. But I will say this, that when you're going to try to create your own opportunity, you're not going to always be able to use the avenues that are there for you in the way that they're there for you. Now, no, Michelle is not telling you to do anything illegal or anything like that. But what I am trying to tell you is once you start using these skills of observation deduction, once you start looking for your clues, your signs, your messages, and then once you start contextualizing all the information you get, please do not ignore the fact that you're going to start to see loopholes. And I'm going to tell you, if you start seeing them and you make use of them, people are going to come to you and they're going to be like, teach me how to do it. Ask me how I know. So don't think that, oh, just because you come up with something or you receive something and it doesn't look like everything, that you're used to, doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of it. I will tell you, I'm not trying to give specifics on things because, that's my business. But what I am going to say is, creating your own opportunities, I had to get over when I was younger trying to get permission and validation from people who had already told me no and did not care whether I got in or not. And so that's another thing, another skill. You're going to have to become very self-disciplined with when it comes to your emotions about things. You have to get emotions under control to where they're manageable and that they work for you and not work on you. Yes, they work for you and not on you, because When, and it's not an if, when you go through this observation, deduction, learning how to contextualize things, looking for your loopholes, you're going to start to see them, and you're going to have to control your emotions to know when to act, how to act, and everything. The other day I did a podcast on how not to tell all your plans. And that's going to come into play here. Because I'm going to tell you now, when you start making your own lane and you start gathering the ability to create your own opportunities, there's going to be a lot of excitement. And depending on your makeup, you might be a person that has to have that ego stroked, and you got to have people, singing your praises. If that's you, calm it down. Go back and listen to that podcast I did on the 3 G's to know which G or G's is your downfall. Take care of that first. And don't, whatever you do, don't flub this. Don't mess this up. Okay. So the next thing is if you're on the other side of this, and when I say the other side of this, meaning that you've just been beat down. You're like, I just can't go through this anymore. And you might be able to see everything that I'm talking about. You might be like, Michelle, I know you're telling the truth because I see so many different ways to get in a back door. I see so many different things. But I'm just so tired. I can't do this anymore. I'm just over this or whatever. I want to say this to you. Do not settle, because when you settle, you only end up at the bottom. All settlements end up at the bottom. Don't settle. Give yourself one more try and go get it. Okay. And so I want you to realize that if you're feeling that way, or if you're trying to get permission, it's because you're thinking too much instead of knowing. Let me tell you a little bit of thinking and knowing. And I have Friedrich Nietzsche with his depressing self to thank for this. But in his treatise of what is truth, he talked about the grand creatures that in a moment, somewhere in a great cosmos, developed knowing. And he talks about knowing and juxtaposes it with thinking. And a lot of times, if you're getting caught up with all the why you can'ts, because that's another enemy of when you get torn down and refused and rejected, then you get to the point where you become the advocate for your oppression, where you start being able to tell all it's quote unquote factual. I don't know so much about truth, but it's factual as to the reasons why you can't do something, because somebody told you no, somebody told you it cost too much, somebody told you had to have this certification, or someone said this or that, or whatever it may be. Those might all be facts, but are they really standing in your way? Remember, no means next. It really does. And so I want you to don't settle, because you only end up at the bottom if you do that. And I want you to know the difference between thinking. Thinking is when you're justifying and you are co signing and advocating for all the reasons why you can't do something, because thinking is the search for facts and for certainty, where you want to be just certain that the pathway is paved and everybody is singing your name and they're crying Hosanna to the highest when you come down the Della Vela Rosa. Okay, let me pull that back. But you want everybody on the parade route cheering your parade. You want to make sure that it's a certainty. And so you're thinking through things. Well, instead of thinking through things, I want you to just get to the point where you know stuff. Um, the other day I talked a little bit about confidence and how in our formative stages we're wired to build confidence by seeking out our tribe and people who get us. And then once we're around those people who are like us, we exert little things in ourselves to get good feedback so we can build and sustain our confidence. And so when people feel ostracized and alone and they feel counter to things, they tend to not have the innate confidence unless they are building these skills that I'm talking about. And so the next skill, so I talked about, building the skill of observation and deduction, building the skill of being able to be very contextual, building the skill of always looking for loopholes, building the skill of never settling, and now building the skill of knowing over thinking. And I'm just going to say it now. Yes, you're always going to think. I mean, you can't not think, but you need to know that you know, because in knowing, thank you, Friedrich Nietzsche, it is the search for meaning and truth. And when you know that you know, no matter what someone says, no truly does become next. And that means that you get to the point where you just say, okay, I'm moving forward. Now, I'll give you this little thing here, and that is when someone tells you no, and you know that, and I'm talking about no, N-O, as opposed to no, K-N-O-W, and you know that this is for you and that this is going to possibly be a way that you're going to need to make your own lane, make your own opportunity. If you have opportunity for the person or people who've told you no, maybe it's even a gatekeeper, ask them this. I have used this so many times and gotten so much great wisdom. And that is, if you got to write it down, if you got to pull over to the side of the road and take a moment and voice record it, do it. But this is what I encourage you to do when you get told no, okay? And that is, if you were in my place, knowing what you know about your industry, what would you do? Oh my freaking gosh. Just asking that, I don't know what it is, but it strikes a chord in people because you're doing a lot of subliminal stuff. Well, the first thing is you're asking for a favor. And by asking people for a favor, I don't know what it is, but people psychologically are compelled to oblige because they want to help. The next thing is, depending on who you're talking to, you're stroking their ego because you have now put yourself in the subordinate position to allow them to have the dominant position so that they can help you by giving you their wisdom. I don't care if it is the bus boy, you know, if they're still in the organization, be willing to humble yourself and ask that, and you will be amazed at what you get. And don't forget, have confidence in yourself. Even if no one is holding the pom poms or baking the cakes for you, you still have to believe in yourself by remembering to know way over the thinking, because you can overthink or outthink yourself out of a lot of things that are truly meant for you. But because you couldn't see past your thinking to know that it was for you, you missed all kind of opportunities and you did not pave your own way. Okay. And so the next thing is, and I talked about this the other day as well, make use of any anonymity that you have. You When people don't know who you are, that is a brilliant gift because you are able to move like a ninja doing some things around here before they find out what you're doing. You be willing to be the talented, prepared, skilled, unknown stranger. Yeah, be able to go and do those things before people are watching you and trying to snipe you and take you down. There's a lot to be said about that. And then realize this, and as my time is coming to close, I just want to make sure that you take the time to do this part, and that is know your location in relation to where what you want and what and how you want to start, and then work from the outside in. Don't necessarily try to rush in. Get the lay of the land. Be very strategic. Think of yourself as a general as well as a foot soldier, and be strategic and choose your moves so that you can be, as they call it, circumspect. You can be going around to see all the different facets of what's going on so that you can always be strengthening your own position and your own lane over and over again, especially now. There are people who, oh, you don't like my singing? You don't want to give me a record deal? Okay, I'll make my own lane. Oh, you don't want me to be a author, you don't want to accept my book's agent or whatever, I'll write my own. Oh, you don't want, and on it goes, where you see people making their own lanes. But while they're doing it, if they're smart, they're also always circumferencing the industry to know the industry, as well as, remember, observation and deduction, to know their vulnerabilities, know the opportunities, and also to know the context of who, what, when, why, where, and how, and when. Okay. And so I know that this might be a daunting thing for you, but I am cheering you on from here. That is why I'm sharing these wisdom smacks with you. And so, in my last few seconds, I just want you to understand this, that somewhere in your life, you have already accomplished everything you ever wanted to go after. All you need to do is to believe and know this, and then get to be the person, even if you got to ask yourself, who do I need to be to accomplish what it is I desire? And then go forward knowing that you are that person. So, yep, guess what? My time is up. I thank you for yours. This has been MichelleSpiva, your practical priestess of wisdom, with another podcast of Wisdom Smack. Mwah. Please don't forget to use our Amazon link at michellespiva.com/AMZ for all your Amazon shopping to support the show. And I'll see you. And that's going to do it for today's podcast of Wisdom Smack with MichelleSpiva. If you like this podcast, please help us get the word out. Like, comment, subscribe, and even share. And if you really like it, please help us continue to get the word out by considering using this show's link for Amazon. So when you want to go to Amazon and you do all of your general shopping, please use MichelleSpiva.com/AMZ. It's simple as that. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and this show might receive a little bit of commission that will go towards helping to further get these episodes out to you and to others. So thank you so much for listening. This has been MichelleSpiva with Wisdom Smack. Bye.